Oh, hi there, neighbor. I'm hanging out at my friend Fred's house. I don't think you know him. Anyway, I just finished watching the fourth Indiana Jones movie. It's probably the worst in the franchise, but I have a soft spot in my heart for it because, well, I was in it. I'm not really a big fan of being on camera, but when Steven Spielberg calls. For context, Indiana Jones is an archaeologist, so he's always in the search of knowledge. Speaking of which... Hi there, me again. My research focuses on understanding how to realize the potential of the pediatric patient-centered medical home, especially as it pertains to health equity for underserved and minority populations. My projects are frequently centered in patient and family engagement. For example, we've done work with adolescent Black males and their parents to better understand the drivers and barriers of preventative care seeking. I also do work implementing and evaluating wealth-building opportunities as a means of addressing poverty as a prominent social determinant of health. This comes in the form of community partnerships that allow us to engage in activities such as free tax preparation and financial counseling for our families. Through this initiative, we've returned almost $700,000 to the community in the past 2 years. I'm really looking forward to making that $1 million. Oh, hi again. Just doing a little bit of reading. I like to understand it to tell people stories, which plays into my interest in qualitative methods. I've found that my most productive collaborations also come with people who appreciate and like to integrate innovation and behavioral economics techniques into their project design. If that describes you, drop me a line. Oh, hi. LDI has so many deep thinkers, doesn't it? This guy hasn't been invited to be a fellow yet. I'm sure he's kind of upset about it. But congratulations to all of our new fellows this year. If anyone is interested in health equity-focused project implementation in primary care, please contact me. I'm also one of the associate program directors for our residency program. We recruit 50-plus talented future leaders every year. They might just be the next co-author on your paper. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure you'll see me around town.
Hi, my name is George Demiris. I'm a faculty member in the School of Nursing with a joint appointment in the Department of Biostatistics, Epidemiology, and Informatics in the School of Medicine. I was born and raised in Greece, although I did my undergraduate degree in Germany and moved to the States in '96 for my graduate studies at the University of Minnesota. My research focuses on the design, implementation, and evaluation of information technology tools for older adults and their families, and that ranges from systems in home and hospice care to smart homes and even robotics. And I would love to collaborate with people who come with a technical or clinical expertise. I'm really interested in finding new ways to address some of the old challenges we face in gerontology, as well as ways to empower and engage older adults and their families in shared decision making. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody and looking forward to identifying collaborators and working together. Thank you.
So a fun fact about myself is that I was an avid track and field athlete in high school and college. I was a triple jumper, high jumper, and I also surprisingly threw the discus. So during the pandemic, it's been really interesting to how I modify my workouts, especially if it's inclement weather outside. I have 47 steps in my home, and so I'm able to replicate my track and field stair workouts in my own home, and that's how I've been trying to stay active on rainy days. In terms of collaborations, what I can offer is expertise in health equity, anti-racism work, seriously ill communication and education research that's geared towards patients, and shared decision making. And what I'm looking for is essentially the same, and actually looking to work with collaborators and branch outside of nephrology and look more broadly at those same aspects of health equity, anti-racism, seriously ill communication and education projects, and anything else that seemed interesting and even remotely close to those topics.
Hi, I'm Alex Fanaroff. I'm an adult interventional cardiologist and health services researcher. Before I came to Penn, I spent 16 years at Duke, where I did identify as a Cameron crazy. Sorry to those of you guys that don't like Duke basketball. When I'm in the cath lab, I look like this and spend my days taking pictures of heart arteries and opening up the closed ones. When I'm at home, I look like this and help my wife take care of my 2 daughters, Evie, who's 4, and Ruthie, who's 2. But when you guys see me, I'll look like this, except hopefully I won't have hair that's 6 months overdue for a cut for too much longer. My research focuses on identifying areas where cardiovascular care is delivered inefficiently, variably, or is limited by patients' inability to change their behavior. Then, we develop broadly implementable, ideally technology-based solutions to help fix those problems. And finally, we test those solutions, ideally in pragmatic clinical trials. I'm also interested in better characterizing the cardiovascular evidence base and the state of the clinical trials ecosystem in cardiology to make the case for more pragmatic clinical trials. So what do I bring to the table? First, I bring expertise in cardiovascular care delivery across the spectrum, from the emergency department to the cath lab to the intensive care unit to clinic. Second, I bring enthusiasm and time. I have an American Heart Association Career Development Award for the next 3 years, so I truly do have protected time for research. Lastly, I have expertise in clinical trials, especially pragmatic clinical trials, from my time at Duke and the Duke Clinical Research Institute. So what am I looking for? Besides a haircut and childcare, I'm looking to develop collaborations that make use of my clinical expertise as well as my pragmatic clinical trials expertise and training. I'm new to Penn, and I feel like I'm only scratching the surface of the people and resources that are here, and I'm looking forward to digging deeper. I'm also looking forward to meeting you all in person when we can gather in large groups again. One thing I'm not looking forward to, though, is people being able to see what kind of pants I'm wearing all the time.
Oh, hello there. Excuse me. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. You caught me when I was busy reviewing the literature. As a one-time AIDS nurse, the work that I do is really informed by my former practice at the bedside, and that is trying to figure out ways that LGBTQ adolescents may receive information during a developmental phase that is attuned to their same-sex attractions, behaviors, and identities. Work that we've conducted has shown that a lot of the preliminary information they receive are pretty much heteronormative in focus and does not really answer their emerging questions. And so some of the earlier work I did has been focused on trying to figure out how can we assist parents come up with providing that specific information. And so Parents Assist is advancing supportive and sexuality inclusive sex talks. And that essentially has resulted in animated videos and other materials that parents can utilize to inform themselves of these specific topics that may not have been part of their experiences as they were growing up. We also found out that in so many ways, they need assistance in figuring out how to communicate this information for these youth. And so another project that we've worked on really is having sex talks that would empower parents. Project STEP is a collection of information that we hope to turn into interventions eventually that would really make a case for why it's crucial that parents address these emerging issues for those who are gay, bisexual, or queer males. In this past summer, we've actually expanded that work because we've realized that there are specific details that sexual minority women, lesbians, and bisexual queer girls figured that they also need assistance with. And so we've got some exciting data that have come out of that study. And then consequently, we've also expanded to figure out how we can address the gender-specific information and needs of families with transgender and gender non-binary individuals. So all of these studies that I've conducted really has resulted in me being accused by one of my colleagues of being an acronym royalty. And you know what? I've realized I'm just going to go ahead and embrace that title.
So there you have it. That's the work that I've been conducting out of the School of Nursing. If anybody is interested in collaborating on parent-child intervention development, specifically around families with LGBTQ adolescents, I'd love to hear from you. And also, if you have actual experience with the development of a measure or a scale to validate or come up with parent-child sex communication measures, please let me know, as there really isn't a validated measure out there right now. Thank you very much. I hope everybody's doing okay, and hopefully we'll all get to meet soon at one of the LDI meetings in person. Thank you. Take care.
Hello, all my virtual LDI colleagues. I'm Ari Friedman. I'm a health economist and an emergency doctor who did 13 years of training at Penn over the years, starting in undergrad and coming back for MD PhD. So I've been junior faculty at Penn for a year now, and my research looks at kind of 4 domains. So the first is things in the unscheduled care space, the reduced form industrial organization of the unscheduled care space. So that means like what happens to emergency departments when urgent care clinics move into town. Why do we have wait times in emergency departments? Can we really declare certain visits lower acuity based on claims data and perhaps moving into better methods of doing that? Increasingly, I'm focused on aging in the emergency department, so on older patients who present acutely in the emergency department, so thinking around abdominal pain as a type of early acute geriatric syndrome or exploring kind of that space. So that's what my K proposal that I put in June was about. I'm very excited to be working on that. And then I work a little bit on online privacy and health. And so that's an area that I'm working with some people in medical ethics and health policy, and we're doing some interesting things that hopefully you'll be able to read about soon. And then I work in the clinical space. I work as an emergency doctor at primarily at Presbyterian in the trauma center. So, interesting fact about me is that I have 3 children, and it's the middle of a pandemic where they're closing school, and that I haven't been photobombed yet in this video. Take care. Feel free to email me if you want to talk, or we'll set up Blue Jeans if you can take one more Blue Jeans in your day.
My name's Laura Gibson. I was at the Annenberg School for Communication for 10 years, studying health communication with Bob Hornick and Joe Capella, 2 other LDI fellows. And for the last 2 years, I've been a research assistant professor in the Division of Health Policy with another LDI fellow, Christina Roberto. Christina leads the Peach Lab, Psychology of Eating and Consumer Health. And I'm the deputy director of that lab and manage the data and data analyses that happen there, which we have a lot of data at this point, especially on the Philadelphia beverage tax, on other field experiments she's been up to too. My fun fact is that I've learned how to make music videos since the pandemic started, which is pretty exciting for me. I sing and I play piano, and I'm a member of the First Unitarian Church. And so when the pandemic started in March, the church went virtual with our services. And so the band had to figure out how to make music videos. So I got really quickly up to speed as to how to use iMovie and fit more than one video into a single track, which is really fun. In terms of what I bring to a collaboration, I've had a lot of experience working with public health officials in order to determine which messages are going to be most persuasive in getting people to engage in healthy behaviors. Currently, we're working on a project with the state of Delaware to encourage people to download a digital contact tracing app so that we can prevent the spread of coronavirus, as well as giving them feedback and suggestions as to how to improve their messaging around wearing masks and staying socially distanced, things like that. The other big project we were doing at Annenberg, we were collecting all the media we could find related to tobacco, which meant that we needed to know what was in these documents that we had collected. So I was learning Python and R so that I could do supervised machine learning of that data set that we had from all the different media sources. So we could turn these hundreds of thousands of documents into single numbers to predict the amount of coverage of various tobacco topics on a given day and its relationship with the survey respondents' beliefs or intentions or behaviors on that day. What I'm looking for in terms of collaboration is if somebody else wants to be in my band, or Christina and I also are multiple PIs on a grant which looks like it might get funded to look at the health outcomes of the beverage tax in Philadelphia. And we're going to be looking at that with electronic health records and dental records. And so we have a lot of great people on that project already, but if you have any tips about cleaning and working with electronic health record data, I am all ears.
What I have to offer as a collaborator is a network of possible research assistants. I teach for the undergrad major Health and Societies here at Penn. Two of the courses I teach that intersect with the research interests of many of you, perhaps, are American Health Policy and the Social and Structural Determinants of Health. And what I want to tell you today is that Health and Societies, or HSOC, undergrad students are a passionate and diverse crowd, many of whom are often looking to work as research assistants during their time at Penn, and many of whom I think may be uniquely qualified to work with you. So HSOC students tend to be pre-health in some way, so pre-public health, pre-med, nursing, pre-healthcare consulting, pre-health law. They choose the Health and Societies undergrad major because they're interested in a multidisciplinary perspective or set of perspectives on healthcare problems and solutions. Within the major, the students tend to concentrate on, concentrate in a certain area. So like healthcare markets and finance, health policy, or race, gender, and health. These concentrations overlap, of course. All of them become well-trained in history, anthropology, and sociology, but then they combine that with the methods and coursework from other disciplines like epidemiology or bioethics, political science, economics. So they end up being quite comfortable working with both quantitative and qualitative data. So if you find yourself looking for an undergrad research assistant, please shoot me an email or get in touch with the HSOC program director. I don't currently have any collaboration needs, though I am thinking about submitting a research proposal to investigate the intersection of labor inequities and health inequities during the pandemic. If you Google Penn Today labor inequities, you can read a short profile of a class project that we did last spring in the Social and Structural Determinants of Health class. And you can read that profile of that project, which would serve as a pilot for a more formal research study. And you can hear the perspectives of 3 of our amazing HSOC students. Did I mention you should hire HSOC students as research assistants? 2 fun facts about me. One, my own research interests are primarily in the history and anthropology of exercise and sports science. And 2, I was in the military when I was younger. Bye.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sometimes asking one specific question can change your entire research and personal trajectory. In 2010, I asked my colleagues working on family and fertility dynamics and HIV/AIDS in Malawi and sub-Saharan African countries this question. What about research on aging in sub-Saharan Africa? At that time, research on aging in this context was neither particularly relevant nor considered of high interest, and data allowing this research were and still continue to be quite limited. What I thought would be a very short detour, possibly resulting in a paper or 2, turned out to have a profound and long-lasting impact on my research path. In 2011, in collaboration with a small group of enthusiastic and risk-friendly colleagues, I was instrumental in establishing the mature adults cohort of the Malawi Longitudinal Study of Families and Health, MLSFHMAC, which represents a rare longitudinal aging cohort study in one of the poorest and resource-constrained environments. The study combines longitudinal elements from MLSFH with new measurements that have been developed and implemented by other aging studies, such as the Health and Retirement Study or the SHARE family. A specific focus of MLSFH MAC is the comprehensive longitudinal information on mental health and cognition. Most recently, in 2019 and 2020, we supplemented the collected information with data on all healthcare providers and healthcare facilities serving our study areas. The 2020 Healthcare Provider Survey has been supported by LDI COVID-19 Rapid Response Grant. What was supposed to be a summer spent mostly in Malawi collecting the next round of data on elderly individuals became a COVID-19 phone survey managed entirely from here that we successfully completed in mid-August and that resulted in 2,300 interviews. Besides knowledge about COVID-19, the implementation of different measures such as social distancing, wearing masks, and others, we collected also detailed information on how the virus affects the economic situation of families and individuals, their mental health, their trust in the government and healthcare providers, information on social networks, and many other aspects. Although it was very productive and by all means very successful time since mid-March, I really miss not spending the summer in Malawi. The detour that I took 10 years ago resulted in my passion and love for the African continent and many cherished friendships in Malawi. But not spending the summer in Malawi helped me discover new talents and set up new goals. I'm turning into a pro in online education, covering elementary, middle, and high school. I develop ambitious training goals for our 8-month-old standard poodle puppy. And I'm happy to be finally back in the swimming pool where I'm working very hard in finally mastering this butterfly stroke. Thank you very much for your attention. I am looking forward to meeting many of you in person. For those of you interested in aging research in sub-Saharan Africa, please do contact me. I am keen in developing new collaborative ideas, research ideas that explore the richness of our data.
Hi, I'm Melanie, and this is Finn. I guess I will start out with my fun fact. Finn is my Westie. He's 6 years old, and he likes to watch TV with me. So I'm a faculty member at the School of Nursing. My research interests are in vaccine hesitancy and conversations around vaccines on social media, especially looking at how we can glean information from those conversations in order to form targeted interventions. I'm also interested in adolescent health, reproductive health, and perinatal drug use. I have a very messy data set looking at all HPV vaccine legislation, both proposed and passed across the United States going back to 2009. So I'd welcome ideas or interests in collaboration with that data set. And finally, to end things out, I'm also a bridge player. So if you play bridge, I'm always looking for a partner.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Lynn, and I'm dressed as my graduate school alter ego Linfinity from my days in a statistics cover band that I played and sang in with a few of my friends who were also in the PhD program at North Carolina State University. Linfinity was especially popular amongst some of my professors' young kids, some of whom truly thought I was Katy Perry. As a statistician, a lot of my expertise is very general and can be applied to problems in a number of applications, but I'm particularly interested in two broad areas. The first is precision medicine, and the second is the analysis of medical imaging data, and specifically neuroimaging data, where I work to study neurodevelopment and some neurological diseases. On the imaging side, I'm an associate director of the Pensive Group, which is a group of biomedical imaging analysis specialists within the Biostatistics division at Penn. And if you're interested in our work, you can check out our brand new website. We have a lot of summaries of some of our recent work and work that we do with students and postdocs and so forth. With respect to personalized medicine, which I think may be more relevant to the work of many of the LDI fellows, I have developed statistical methods for estimating personalized decision rules or personalized treatment sequences of decision rules that recommend optimal treatments to patients based on those individual patients' medical histories and accumulating medical status over time, as well as their response to various treatments that are tried over time. Ideally, these types of optimal decision rules would be estimated from randomized trials, or particularly a type of sequentially randomized trial that's known as a SMART design. SMART stands for Sequential Multiple Assignment Randomized Trial, and it's the gold standard for collecting data that will be useful for developing personalized adaptive interventions. So in terms of collaboration, I'm really interested in connecting with investigators who have access to data that are likely to exhibit heterogeneity of the treatment effects, because that can be leveraged to build adaptive treatment strategies and optimize treatment recommendations, and hopefully end up with an overall benefit in the population, because we're giving patients the best treatment for them at the right time. And then also, if you're interested in writing a proposal to use a SMART design, I have expertise putting in proposals to use this type of design to develop personalized adaptive treatment strategies. And so definitely reach out if you think that that might be a good fit for your research. Thanks everyone, and I look forward to connecting with you all.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Atsushi Mizuno. I am a bass player, a jazz bass player. Therefore, I introduced you my song, which was recorded 5 years ago. It also included the real heart sound. Did you notice it? And I came from Japan. I am strongly interested in the behavioral economics. Therefore, I learned behavioral economics approach in the NAJ unit in the University of Pennsylvania. And therefore, I would like to collaborate with you, especially about the behavioral economics and some kind of the policy approaches. And because I am also interested in the non-cancer palliative care, therefore, I would like to collaborate with you in such kind of the area, research area. I have several data sets about the National Japanese Society of Japanese Circulation Society data set, or the other kind of the hospital data set which can be easily available for me. Therefore, if you are interested in several racial differences or the comparison with other races and ethnicity or something like that, let's collaborate with me. And I would like to compare between the United States and Japan. Might be quite interesting. Therefore, nice to meet you. And I would like to introduce and goodbye with my other songs. Just a moment.
Hi everybody, I'm Anna. I'm a primary care doctor in the Division of General Internal Medicine. I'm recording this video from my living room the night before I head off to the Poconos for a couple of days. I guess a small fact about me is that I'm a potter. I make ceramics. So that's my little interesting fact to note. Clinically or professionally, I'm interested in population health, the social determinants of health, and community-based interventions on addressing the social determinants of health. For the Division of General Internal Medicine, I lead the care management programs, and I'm also the medical director of COVID Watch, which is an automated text messaging based program that texts patients who are home with COVID twice a day. And I am here at LDI because I'm interested in collaborators. I am not a primary research track faculty. I'm on the AC track. So I'm particularly interested in bridging the world between research and clinical. I do have some research training. I did the MSHP program here and the RWJ Clinical Scholars program, but I'm largely a clinical and operations person. So I'm interested in helping people with projects who need a kind of clinical foothold in primary care. And I'm also always looking for people who are interested in evaluating work that we're doing in primary care, especially around care transitions, longitudinal care management, automation, etc. So I am excited to meet all of you and work with you. Take care.
Hi everyone, my name is Becca. Thank you LDI for including me. I'm a psychologist, a health services researcher, and I largely subsist on candy. I'm not talking chocolate, I mean rot your teeth out. Gummy bears, Skittles, Chewy Spree, Sour Patch Kids. This is an appetizer that I would bring to a party. I even like candy that no one else likes. My other greatest passion of late is complaining bitterly about working from home with small children, like these turkeys. My research focuses on non-adopters of evidence-based practices, usually at the organizational level. I work with publicly funded community, mental health, and substance use treatment organizations. And as part of a mixed methods approach, I generally start by interviewing top leadership. Now, it takes a plucky kind of person to be a CEO or a leader in the highly lucrative field of publicly funded behavioral health. And these leaders, through my interviews, educate me on facilitators, such as the importance of messaging change to their workforce, and on barriers, such as the funding of medical infrastructure. I'm interested in collaborations with anybody who likes colorful community partners and wants to talk more about organizations or providers who are driven by evidence. Currently, I'm on a K-23 that looks at how treatment organizations are responding to the Philadelphia 2020 mandate requiring them to provide medications for opioid use disorder. My other interest is in the effects of alternative payment strategies and incentives. Our center partners with Community Behavioral Health, which is the Medicaid payer for behavioral health services in Philadelphia. CBH frequently pilots alternative or value-based payment strategies, such as a bundled rate for opioid use disorder treatment, and we do the evaluations. I like collaborators, but what I need here is a support group, because sometimes our evaluations come out in the total opposite direction of what anyone wants, and I'm often the messenger. My experiences have led me to wonder why states like Pennsylvania and all over the country are mandating value-based purchasing in behavioral health, when there's very little evidence to support it. It's the flip side of the non-adopters. All right, there's a little bit for P and for some process measures, but evidence for clinical outcomes for this population, not much. I'm wondering if this isn't a case of the emperor's new clothes. States might be mandating this because it sounds good. So I'm interested in collaborators who want to help figure out how to design these payment mechanisms to make a difference, how to measure them, and figure out how or who or what to incentivize to enhance these clinical outcomes. So thank you again, and I look forward to hearing from anyone who likes to talk about gummy bears, non-adopters, and VBPs for behavioral health.
So I'm recording this from my favorite hammock in my backyard. I received this hammock many years ago as a gift from some friends while I was living in El Salvador. And fun fact, one time I slept through an earthquake while napping in a hammock. My research here focuses on the use of machine learning and natural language processing methods, mostly in service of population health management and acute care clinical decision support. I hope eventually to test some of these interventions, informatics interventions, in prospective clinical trials. I'm also very interested in the policy environment around these types of prediction models. I'm on a K-23 right now from NHLBI, trying to identify actionable risk mechanisms underlying hospitalizations among community-dwelling patients with lung disease. And we're using qualitative methods to try and identify some of those actionable risk mechanisms. And then we're using NLP to look for those risk mechanisms in the notes of clinical text among patients while they're still out in the community, and not waiting for them to become admitted and be at risk for a 30-day rehospitalization. And then hopefully we want to pilot this kind of predictive intervention as a population health management strategy. My first introduction to health services research was when I was working as a carpenter's assistant, and Sandy Schwartz hired me as a research consultant to write some simulations in C++, and that's actually how I started my career in medicine. Fun fact number 2, I do still have a wood shop in my basement that I use frequently, but my health services research and R skills far exceed my furniture making skills, at least so far. And I also teach a summer class in the MSHP program called Applied Predictive Modeling for Health Services Research. So I'm really excited to be here. I look forward to getting to know you and collaborating with you and becoming a part of the LDI community. Thanks.
Hi guys, I'm Charley. This is Evelyn, or Evie. We'll see if she cooperates while I film this video. So my fun fact is that a couple years ago, before we had this little peanut, my husband and I went on safari in Kenya. And one of the things that we did while we were there was adopt a cheetah named Imani. We do not own a cheetah at home or anything, but we give money on a semi-regular basis to this institute for cheetah conservation in the Masai Mara in Kenya. And actually, I haven't checked to see how Imani is doing in a while. I should probably do that. But to the best of our knowledge, he is alive and well with our support in Kenya. So in terms of research, so what I really care about and think a lot about is clinician decision-making in the pediatric intensive care unit environment. Specifically trying to understand how we make decisions about diagnostic tests and treatments that might not be the best decisions and that can actually reflect overuse of both tests and treatments that can harm patients. So I am hopefully, fingers crossed, about to start a K-23 that is digging into that a little bit more using implementation science and behavioral science and working with some of the wonderful folks that I met when I did the MSHP program a couple years ago and that are big parts of LDI. So what I can offer as a collaborator, I think, is mainly enthusiasm at this point because I'm still fairly junior, and then certainly potentially some, a modicum at least of content expertise in pediatric sepsis and bloodstream infections. And if anybody is interested in any of those things or interested in a collaborator in the ICU environment, I would love to hear more from you. Thanks. Bye.